You thought America's Next Top Model was all runway drama, fierce photo shoots, and iconic makeovers, but what really happened behind the scenes is far darker. From relentless body shaming and psychological manipulation to racial controversies and allegations of exploitation, the show's glossy image hid a troubling reality for many of its contestants. Now, with renewed attention and Netflix finally pulling back the curtain, the untold story of ANTM is coming into focus. So let's break it all down: what went wrong, who was affected, and why it still matters today. This is Curly Curl Pop Culture Explained. Subscribe for deep dives into the entertainment world, reality TV, and the stories they didn't want you to question. Even Tyra Banks now admits they pushed boundaries too far, and that admission changes everything. Long dismissed as simply trash TV or guilty pleasure Saturday night viewing, America's Next Top Model is now being reevaluated not just as entertainment, but as a cultural phenomenon with real human consequences. What once seemed dramatic and fun on screen now looks like calculated production choices that cross lines of ethics, safety, dignity, and consent. In Netflix's upcoming documentary Reality Check, Inside America's Next Top Model, Banks herself acknowledges that the show went too far in pursuit of compelling television, revealing controversial practices such as racially insensitive photo shoots, body-shaming moments, and problematic challenges that left both contestants and audiences unsettled. This is not just about awkward moments or bad editing. Some of the show's most infamous segments are now being critically re-examined. Multiple seasons featured photo shoots where contestants' bodies were dramatically altered or painted to appear as other races, a concept that many now recognize as harmful and insensitive, even though at the time it was framed as experimenting with identity or pushing artistic boundaries. Beyond optics, former contestants and industry observers have described the environment on Top Model as closer to psychological pressure than supportive mentorship. Producers allegedly leveraged contestants' personal traumas and emotional vulnerabilities to create more dramatic television, sometimes intentionally putting participants in emotionally charged situations to elicit fear, breakdowns, and conflict. Reports from former models paint a picture of physically unsafe challenges as well, from treacherous runway walks in 6-inch heels on unstable platforms to exhausting shoot schedules with little regard for contestants' well-being. One Season 7 participant even said, "I felt like my life was being put on the line for ratings," after a runway challenge resulted in a serious knee injury. The show also faced criticism for how it handled issues of consent and personal boundaries. There were episodes where contestants were pressured during photo shoots or pairing scenarios that made them uncomfortable, yet were discouraged from refusing or setting limits, with implications that they might be eliminated if they did. And while the series often touted cultural diversity, that messaging was complicated by instances where Black contestants and other marginalized participants have spoken publicly about feeling misrepresented or harmed by certain challenges and comments, even if Banks and defenders argue that the show was trying to break fashion industry norms. In recent years, some former winners and contestants have been candid about the show's impact long after the cameras stopped rolling. One past winner said her participation actually damaged her chances in the modeling industry because agencies viewed the Reality TV Association as a distraction rather than an asset. She described feeling completely destroyed by the experience, revealing a darker economic aftereffect of the show's fame. Critics have also revisited footage of judges and producers dismissing contestants' discomfort or emotional distress, at times framing it as part of the modeling world's toughness. Reddit threads and fan analyses show that many viewers now notice how contestants were stripped of autonomy, repeatedly pressured not to say no, and then edited into narratives that fit certain entertainment tropes rather than reflecting their real experiences. Tyra Banks has tried to contextualize these controversies in recent public statements, acknowledging missteps and even saying she once said some dumb s during the show's run, while also defending ANTM's role in expanding beauty standards on television. Her comments now reveal an uneasy tension between intention and impact. The show aimed to challenge an often exclusionary fashion industry, yet many of its methods were problematic in ways that were not widely discussed at the time. Today, with online criticism and social media reevaluations amplifying voices once quieted or overlooked, the legacy of America's Next Top Model is no longer simply a nostalgic relic. It's a case study in how reality TV constructs drama at a cost to participants' mental health, physical safety, and careers. and how the industry still needs to grapple with the ethical implications of manufactured conflict disguised as competition. This documentary moment and Tyra Banks' own admissions invite us not just to rewatch old episodes, but to question what we valued in them, why we laughed at what made us uncomfortable, and what responsibility creators have when entertainment intersects with real lives. Some shoots that seemed edgy at the time now look insensitively tone-deaf, and contestants didn't even know what they were signing up for. When you watch America's Next Top Model today, it's easy to remember the glitz, the dramatic photo shoots, the glamorous runways, the jaw-dropping transformations. But behind that polish was a system that often treated young contestants as instruments for entertainment, rather than as human beings with limits, emotions, and dignity. Many of the challenges that made the show must-watch television came at a cost, and that cost wasn't always visible on screen. Former participants have recounted experiences that make even casual viewers pause. Racially insensitive makeovers, extreme body transformations, and culturally appropriative photoshoots were presented as artistic experimentation or tests of versatility. What was framed as pushing the envelope often left contestants uncomfortable, confused, or outright harmed. At the time, few questioned these practices, but in retrospect, the choices reflect a lack of awareness and accountability. The participants, often teenagers or young adults, signed contracts without fully understanding the implications of what they were agreeing to, or the long-term impact it might have on their mental and physical well-being. Psychological pressure was another tool of the trade. Contestants were isolated from support systems, constantly evaluated, and placed in scenarios designed to provoke emotional reactions. Producers manipulated situations to heighten drama: a tense photo shoot, a heated argument in the living quarters, or a critique session framed to push someone to their breaking point. These weren't random moments, they were carefully orchestrated to create content. While it made for compelling television, it also turned real people's lives into a spectacle, often leaving emotional scars behind the scenes. Physical challenges compounded the stress. Models were sometimes asked to perform on unstable platforms, endure uncomfortable costumes, or maintain unnatural poses for extended periods. Injuries, fatigue, and mental strain were common. Several former contestants have spoken publicly about enduring pain and anxiety, feeling pressured to continue for fear of elimination. What viewers saw as a dramatic triumph was often a combination of fear, exhaustion, and compliance, not empowerment. The ethical question extends beyond safety. It is about consent, awareness, and power dynamics. Many contestants were so focused on breaking into the modeling world that they felt compelled to agree to anything. Refusal often meant risking elimination or being portrayed negatively in the edit. Their participation, therefore, cannot be seen as fully voluntary. It existed in a space where ambition was leveraged against vulnerability. This is a pattern seen repeatedly in reality television, but America's Next Top Model exemplifies it because of the level of manipulation involved. Public reception at the time often overlooked these realities. The show was celebrated for diversity, body positivity, and its playful creativity. Yet these same elements were intertwined with practices that were exploitative. Only now, with former contestants speaking out and Tyra Banks herself admitting that the show sometimes went too far, can we fully contextualize the impact. We are beginning to see the layers of complexity. A show that shaped popular culture while also quietly testing the limits of ethics, consent, and human endurance. Today, these stories serve as cautionary tales. They remind us that entertainment is rarely neutral, that the pursuit of ratings can overshadow humanity, and that cultural reflection is essential. America's Next Top Model may have introduced innovative concepts to fashion television, but it also left a legacy of tension between spectacle and morality, a tension that can only be understood by listening to those who lived it. As viewers, our role is to question what we consume and to recognize the unseen costs behind the screen. These contests, these dramatic moments were not just fun or edgy, they were real experiences for real people. And now, decades later, it's time to critically examine what we once celebrated and consider the lessons these behind-the-scenes stories have to teach about ethics, entertainment, and responsibility in media. At times, it wasn't just tough, it was psychological warfare, with emotional and physical risks for contestants. America's Next Top Model wasn't simply a show about fashion or beauty. It was an environment meticulously designed to test the limits of those who participated. While viewers saw glamorous makeovers, dramatic runway walks, and photo shoots that seemed edgy and creative behind the cameras, the stakes were far higher and far more personal than anyone could imagine. Contestants, often young and eager to break into the modeling industry, entered the competition with excitement and ambition. They expected challenges and critique. That's part of any reality competition. What they didn't anticipate were the deliberate manipulations, the emotional triggers, and the relentless pressure orchestrated by producers. Isolation from family and friends, constant evaluation, and high-stress challenges created a pressure cooker environment where even small mistakes could spiral into anxiety, panic, or public embarrassment. Some photo shoots and challenges were not only emotionally taxing but physically risky. Models were asked to stand in precarious positions, maintain extreme poses for hours, or navigate unstable platforms in high heels. Sleep deprivation, strict diets, and extreme critiques compounded the strain. Behind the drama and laughter on screen was a reality where exhaustion and fear were used as tools to extract performance. Contestants weren't just being tested on modeling skill, they were being tested on their ability to endure stress, manipulate their own emotions, and perform under pressure. The psychological impact was profound. Producers reportedly exploited personal insecurities and past traumas, crafting scenarios meant to elicit emotional breakdowns or intense rivalry. Conflicts between contestants, often framed as spontaneous, were in many cases encouraged or amplified by editing and behind-the-scenes direction. The very architecture of the show was designed to provoke tension, making personal suffering a centerpiece of entertainment. Contestants have spoken about feeling like pawns, manipulated for the sake of television drama. It wasn't only emotional strain, physical safety was also at risk. From slippery runways and high-risk stunts to extreme fashion poses, some challenges posed real danger. Yet the show's structure incentivized compliance over caution. Contestants were caught between wanting to succeed and protecting themselves, often feeling that asserting limits could cost them their place in the competition. This created an environment where emotional and physical well-being were secondary to ratings and spectacle. Even years later, former contestants recount lingering effects. Anxiety, self-doubt, and stress related to body image and public scrutiny are common themes. These weren't just temporary difficulties. They were lasting consequences of being placed in an environment engineered for maximum tension. While the show showcased ambition, talent, and creativity, it also highlighted the cost of manufactured drama. The human cost, often hidden behind smiles and glamorous photo shoots. Tyra Banks herself has acknowledged that the show sometimes went too far, revealing that even the creator recognized the potential harm behind the cameras. This admission reframes the narrative, turning what was once dismissed as edgy reality TV into a case study in psychological risk and ethical responsibility. It forces viewers and media professionals alike to reconsider the line between entertainment and exploitation. Ultimately, America's Next Top Model wasn't simply a test of modeling ability. It was a test of endurance, resilience, and emotional fortitude. The glamour, the applause, and the triumphs came intertwined with manipulation, pressure, and danger. Understanding this duality is essential for anyone revisiting the show today. It's a reminder that behind every dramatic moment broadcast for entertainment, there are real people, real risks, and consequences that may last long after the cameras stop rolling. Some challenges weren't just uncomfortable, they were legitimately unsafe. On America's Next Top Model, viewers saw models striking impossible poses, balancing on high heels, or navigating elaborate sets. What looked like artistic or dramatic moments were often physically dangerous exercises that put contestants at real risk. Young models, many in their late teens or early 20s, were asked to perform under conditions that would challenge even seasoned professionals. Slippery floors, high platforms, extreme weather simulations, and complex props became obstacles not for creativity alone, but as part of a system that measured endurance, composure, and obedience under pressure. These risks weren't incidental. Multiple contestants have described shoots where the production team prioritized visuals over safety. One alum recounted walking across a scaffold in stilettos for hours while lights blazed overhead, fearing injury with every step. Another spoke of being made to hold strenuous poses on uneven surfaces while cameras rolled, despite expressing discomfort. In these moments, the line between performance and danger blurred. While producers presented it as part of the modeling experience, contestants were experiencing something far more intense. Their personal safety was being compromised in the pursuit of spectacle. But the danger wasn't purely physical. Emotional risk was built into nearly every challenge. Being put in situations that forced confrontation, humiliation, or fear was standard. Producers knew that stress would produce reactions for the cameras, and contestants often felt trapped, refuse and risk elimination, or comply and risk injury, mental or physical. This combination of fear, fatigue, and expectation created an environment of constant tension, a pressure cooker where judgment was clouded and caution became secondary to survival in the competition. Some of the most infamous challenges highlight just how extreme this environment could be. From ice-cold pools to precarious runway platforms, from balancing atop narrow ledges to working with animals or props that could injure, the show regularly exposed participants to situations that would be unacceptable in most workplaces. Contestants were often young, ambitious, and eager to prove themselves, making them particularly vulnerable. What was framed on camera as bravery, talent, or dedication was often simply compliance under duress. The psychological impact of these unsafe challenges can't be overstated. Contestants reported high anxiety, sleepless nights, and constant self-doubt, worrying not only about performance but about potential injury. Even minor mistakes could lead to falls, scrapes, or long-term physical strain, and yet the competitive environment discouraged expressing concern. Asking for modifications or breaks could be interpreted as weakness, meaning participants pushed themselves far beyond what would have been reasonable for safety or well-being. Tyra Banks herself has acknowledged that some aspects of the show went too far, which adds a critical layer of reflection. When a creator of such a popular series admits the existence of excessive risk, it forces viewers to reassess the show's legacy. The glamour, the runway applause, and the dramatic edits now sit alongside the reality that contestants often endured unsafe conditions, both physically and mentally. Looking back, it's clear that the allure of dramatic television came at a real human cost. While America's Next Top Model opened doors for some participants and revolutionized fashion television, it also exposed the dangers inherent in blending competition, entertainment, and human vulnerability. Safety protocols that might seem obvious today were often secondary to the spectacle. And the models, caught between ambition and obligation, bore the consequences. This history challenges the audience to think critically about the entertainment we consume. It reminds us that behind every striking pose, every high-fashion photo, and every dramatic moment, there may be unseen pressure, risk, and sacrifice. Some challenges weren't just uncomfortable, they were legitimately unsafe. And acknowledging that truth allows us to see the full story behind the cameras, the talent, the ambition, and the courage, but also the cost, the risk, and the human toll.